my captive audience.
True that.
Welcome. The apple cannot be stuck back on the tree of knowledge. Once we begin to see, we are doomed and challenged to seek the strength to see more, not less. This is a quote by Arthur Miller. He's an award-winning playwright, most commonly known for his two plays, Death of a Salesman and The Crucible, for which he also wrote the screenplays for their film adaptations. Today I'll be talking about Miller and his motivations for writing The Crucible, along with how the play reflects some of his own experiences in his life. Many have enjoyed his plays over the years, but I don't think many understand his true motivation for The Crucible. Marshall Berman, author of The Last Page, describes Miller's experience as a real-life witch hunt, which is what the play is about. I got interested in it my junior year of high school in my English class. We read the play and discussed it thoroughly. And then in U.S. history, I wrote a essay on the Red Scare, which is around this time period. And I've also researched the topic extensively preparing for this speech. Arthur Miller's life, trial, and inspiration for his authorship are all things I'll be talking about. First, we need to discuss who Arthur Miller was and where he came from. He was born on October 17th to German Jewish parents, according to Jeffrey Myers, author of A Portrait of Arthur Miller. He grew up in Harlem, New York, where his father was a coat salesman. He would go on to attend the University of Michigan and major in journalism and theater. That's where he wrote his first play, No Villain, which won the Avery Hopwood Award, which is awarded to one student at the university every year, and it covered his tuition for the remainder of his time at the university. A Richard Cavendish article in History Today tells the story of how Arthur Miller married Marilyn Monroe, try saying that 5 times fast, on June 29th, 1956, and they would divorce just a few years later in 1961. Moving on, before we can talk about his personal experiences relating to The Crucible, we need to clarify what his trial was about. According to Inderjeet Parmar's book notes, the House Un-American Activities Committee, we'll call them the committee for short, was at war with communist and fascist groups in the United States. Because this was at the peak of the Cold War, and we were entering the phase in our history called the Red Scare. The committee was heavily influenced by a senator from Wisconsin named Joseph McCarthy in the early 1950s, and McCarthy claimed to have a list of communist and fascist sympathizers. And this led to a series of hearings that eventually rolled around to the Hollywood film industry, which is where Miller became involved. Miller was a member of some communist fringe groups in the early 1940s, and then Marshall Berman gives an account of Miller's experience here. When the trial rolled around to Miller, he was told by the committee chairman that he would not have to give names of other members involved in the communist fringe group. But the chairman went back on his word, and when Miller didn't name any names, he was convicted by contempt of Congress. Miller appealed the ruling, and the court ruled that because Miller was misled, the ruling was overturned. Now that we've talked about Miller's involvement with the trial, we can talk about his influence, his writing influence, how was his writing influence for The Crucible. Miller went to Salem and did extensive research on the Salem witch trials, according to Marshall Berman, who I mentioned earlier. The play tells the story of a man named John Proctor who has an affair with a girl named Abigail. And when he breaks the affair off, Abigail looks for revenge anywhere she can. Abigail finds out that some girls in the town tried to summon some spirits, and they allegedly saw other townsfolk dancing with the devil. Abigail takes advantage of the situation and starts throwing around accusations. And the only way to clear your name was to give the name of someone else who was seen dancing with the devil. It eventually rolls around to John Proctor, who was not involved, but he was refusing to name the names of anybody else just for his own convenience. This is a direct relation to Miller's experience when he refused to name names of other people involved in the Communist Fringe Group. Berman refers to this as a witch hunt, Miller's experience as a witch hunt, because it's so directly related to the literal witch hunt in the Crucible. I hope you've learned a lot about the life and trial of a very influential playwright, along with where some of his inspiration came from his authorship. I started with a quote, and I'll end with one here. Maybe all one can do is hope to end with the right regrets. Thank you.